Okay, drum roll. Welcome to another episode on the Fluent Conversations podcast. And this episode is actually really special, not just because of the topic that we are going to explore, but also because it is Chris's birth anniversary.
That's not true.
When is your birthday?
My birthday is in July 1st, so we have 2 or 3 months
Exactly.
away.
I was thinking May for some reason.
No, no,
It's not, right? The 1st of July. All
yeah.
right, Chris. Okay. So we're going to talk about something really interesting, but I think we can discuss our names and where it came from because like the sound of your name sounds a bit unique to me, even though I thought for many months that it is a common name in the Spanish world, but I just got to know in our talk backstage that it's not a common name in the Spanish world. So how did your parents put together a name that sounds like Christiani? And you want to tell our audience how the Americans pronounce your name?
Yeah, for sure. So in the 90s, I think Venezuelans were started this random trend of mixing their names,
Hmm.
putting them to their children. So I
Hmm.
am one of those experiments. My dad's name is Christian, which is a common name in Spanish.
Hmm.
It also is like the religion.
Yeah, among
Um,
Christians.
yeah. Um, and my mom's name is Anna. So they've mixed them. They decided to create one name. So like Christiana, or like Chris and Anna. But they changed it the last vowel to I, so it's Christiani.
That makes it sound more like a girl name.
Hmm.
Christiana. I think that even that sounds like a girl name, but a bit,
Yeah.
unique.
And once I saw some people from Greece, and I saw some girls that have similar names like Christiana or Christiani, but
Oh.
it's written different. It's like with Y instead of I
And where does the Y go at the end?
at the beginning. Like, yeah, it was kind of weird, but it is like at the beginning.
It's like the Christiani. Chrissy,
Uh-huh.
right? And the Yani. Okay, makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. So I think maybe it's common or similar there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how do the Americans pronounce your name?
Yeah. So the first time I heard my name when I came, um, the official said Christian,
Mm,
which is like Chris and should be like if you translate it.
yeah.
um, but in Spanish we say Cristiani, which
Mm.
is
And also with
totally,
the accent.
yeah, Cristiani. So I started calling myself Christian instead of
Mm.
Cristiani.
Right. Okay, that's the
Yeah.
sound. And I think your name is not a very difficult sound to replicate. Once you
Mhm.
told me your name's Christiani, it's like never had a problem pronouncing your name.
Mhm.
I've had some problems pronouncing my Russian students' names or Polish students'
Mhm.
name. I remember this one student who was actually called Piotr, and till the end of our time together, I just couldn't pronounce his name the Polish way. I had to call him Peter. And he said,
Mhm.
It's totally cool with me. You can call me Peter.
Yeah.
But I also felt at times that I was saying his name right, but he'd gotten so dismissive of it. They said, no, incorrect, no, incorrect, oh, fail, 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 fail. So I
Yeah.
decided I was not going to try anymore because I think I'm really good with sounds. I can replicate weird sounds, and that's not a
Uh-huh.
problem for me. But he then made me realize that Polish names can be a bit hard to pronounce. And
Mhm.
his surname, I cannot even get started with how long his
No,
surname was.
I
I didn't
know.
even try.
Yeah.
You have any experience with that? Pronouncing
Yeah,
Polish
I experienced the
names?
same. I had some students from, for
Mm.
example, Nor Nor how do you Norway, from Norway.
Oh,
And
Norway.
yeah, and like one of them was called like Eirik. Well, that's
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, no, I understand. I
Yeah.
have this student from Ukraine, but her name is simple because it is a like very English name, very European name,
Mhm.
so I don't have any
Yeah, but
difficulty.
their last names are hard because it's
Yeah,
like peace are like a lot of different letters mixed, so we don't know
exactly.
where
It
to
doesn't make
start.
sense for an English speaker. You don't
Hmm.
because you don't see any vowels in there.
No,
There's
even
only consonants, K,
yeah,
Y, T.
exactly. Even in Spanish, like we don't have those type of words.
No, I get it. Okay, Chris, let's get into the conversation and have the real talk. So, as we mentioned in the title, we're going to talk about the awkward moments speaking a foreign language. In our discussion, it's going to be about English mostly, but we'll also give a mix of Spanish because we have a Spanish native in front of us, and she's also been a Spanish teacher for a long time, and she's still a Spanish teacher. Isn't that right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
kind of.
So, but first off, I'd like to make this point clear to our platform that I don't think any mistake made while speaking a foreign language is an embarrassing mistake per se, but the speaker or the person who makes that mistake can feel a bit embarrassed about having said something that doesn't like necessarily fall in the category of right things. You know what I mean? And still, we'll try to keep this conversation pretty lighthearted and we'll probably have a bunch of fun and laughter. So, I want to give you a bit of an overview about my life. So, my learning journey has been pretty smooth, I'd say. I've not had a lot of ups or downs or dips or spikes or anything like that. But when I was given my first public speaking task, it went really badly. And it came around really early in school. I was a fourth grader and we had this morning assembly ritual where you have to all the students in the school gathered up, we lined up, and we do some prayers and we'll have some chats with the teachers, and that usually ended with three things: the daily news, so somebody has to go up on stage and recite the news items, and then you have the thought for the day and some speech or poem of some kind, you know what I'm saying? So I went first, I had to do the news part, and for some reason, I did not realize that I wasn't a good reader. I mean, in general, I'm not saying I wasn't a good reader of English and I was an excellent reader of Hindi. I never read books back then. I'd never picked a book outside my textbooks. So it was very hard for me to pull off that thing. And the obvious happened. I almost crumbled on the stage and I wanted to dig a hole on the stage and jump inside and never come back because I just like did not have a face to show to the world. And as a child, I wasn't even a teenager back then. It was too harsh on me. It definitely took a toll on my confidence, and for months on end, I was almost depressed.
Mhm.
And I cannot define in actual terms how I felt because it's hard. Like it feels like the experience was so bad that I didn't want to repeat it ever again in my life. And I told you, I think I've told you about this. I had this teacher, teachers in general, they're human beings, and human beings can be good or bad, especially in specific situations. So in that particular situation, there was this teacher standing right beside me who was being a bad person, at least in the moment, and she was constantly trying to pick at me. You know what I mean? She was questioning my uniform. Oh, you're not well clad. Oh, you're not wearing the right blazer. Oh, you're not pronouncing the word correctly. She wasn't saying it in a way that was audible to the audience, so she could be the villain in the situation. She tried to conceal herself like that, but she was constantly passing comments in my ear, and that did the magic. I got nervous. I couldn't even read the simple words on the script. But I wouldn't say it was a bad experience all in all. Like in the totality, I would say I learned a lot of things from it. And early on, I got this bad experience. So bad experiences do scare me still. It's not like I'm immune to bad experience or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I have something to remember and to learn from. It has become a source of power for me at this point. And when I remember that, now I laugh about it, but back then it was a nightmare for me. So, do you have any similar experiences? Something like, might not be with school, but maybe in college or trying to speak to a native speaker because you get that opportunity quite often now.
Yeah. Students. Um, I'm not remembering anything specific in English, but I was teaching one of my students Spanish. He's from Canada, maybe, I think. And this guy was really normal. during the classes. So I was teaching him how to say I have a girlfriend or boyfriend. Um, but I think he was doing like an introduction of himself, saying these words. Um, and in Spanish, you have one word for boyfriend and girlfriend, but you change it gender, just switching the last
Last letter.
vowel. So
Yeah.
it's novia, novio. And I remember he was giving his introduction. He was saying like, "Oh, I'm a doctor. I work, whatever. It sounds really Spanish. Whatever." And he said, "I have a." He said, "Tengo novio, novio, yeah, novio." Um, which means I have a boyfriend. But
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking. I was like in the tutor mood, and sometimes they have some mistakes with gender in Spanish because of this. It's really easy to be confused. So he said novio, and I told him novia, novia.
You have a girlfriend,
Y-
right? You
it
It's
was
I
a
have a
guy.
girlfriend, not I have a
So,
boyfriend. Because he is
ex
the boyfriend.
exactly. So I said novio, and then he said no, but I'm gay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
So
okay.
I was correcting him because I thought it was a
Right.
mistake of the spelling word, but he was gay, so it was right that he said novio.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and during the entire class, I was feeling so embarrassed because of this. But you know how I could know he was gay? Maybe it
No,
was,
I understand that.
yeah. But this can happen too. Even for me, that was just using my language, you know.
Yeah. Good something you remember in the moment. And like there's this one thing that I think we've all struggled with, and many of us still struggle with this, like listening to your own recorded voice. There was
Mhm.
a point in my life where I hated listening to myself when it was in an audio file. For some reason, I just hated the sound of my voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've
Uh-huh.
met so many students. Obviously, we don't have this conversation on the first day itself. It comes a bit later on when you warm up to them and they start to tell you their icks. So one of the icks that comes up very commonly is that I hate listening to my own voice. And I think this is a problem, but it can be fixed because I fixed it for myself. Now I film a lot of videos for my personal YouTube and for our podcast channel and all the rest. And it's not hard for me to listen to my own voice.
Mhm.
Earlier, like before I started teaching, this is one thing that concerned me, Chris, is that it was not about the mistakes that made me, that I feared. I was not afraid that I'm gonna make mistakes or anything like that because obviously I was ready to be an English speaker because I've been practicing English 10 years at this point. So that's something that I was more comfortable with. You know what I'm saying? That was like my
Mhm.
safe spot. But with my voice, because like the first platform where I started teaching, they asked me to watch my own recordings just so you can see your mistakes from a third person's
Yeah.
point of view. And that's important, reasonable, all the rest, great. I decided I was never going to do it because I'd hate the sound of my voice. But gradually, you have to work with it. And
Yeah.
even more than that, you actually have to do one thing, which is familiarize. You hate the sound of your voice. Obviously, some things need changing. But even more than that, you have to be a bit, compassionate to yourself. We talk about compassion so much. We talk about loving people, understanding people, not judging. But we never like talk
Mhm.
about less self-judgment and
Yeah.
more self-compassion. That's one thing that we need to develop. So I've built this familiarity with my own voice, listening to myself in recordings, in videos, in films, and now I'm a lot more comfortable. But on the language side of it, many people just do not like the accent that they use.
Mhm.
That's fixable. You know what I mean? You can get a one-on-one lessons, get one-on-one lessons with a tutor that you can hire specifically to work on your accent. You can reduce your accent or get a course or anything like that. But the thing is, you shouldn't be hating on yourself for something that is mostly natural, but it can be trained. So
Mhm.
have you had Have you had a similar feeling about your voice, or you've always loved your voice?
Tonight, tonight I was remembering how I started creating content, and maybe you'll be surprised because I started like I was I had some videos that I record when I was like 7 years old with my brother, and we started making like funny stories. And I also remember that like when I was 10, I wanted to have radio program.
Radio?
Uh-huh. Yeah, so I had
Okay.
one like Nokia phone, and I started
Yeah.
recording myself speaking or talking about different things. I don't remember the topics, but that was my first podcast. And
Okay.
yeah, so maybe I experienced that when I started recording myself for my videos because I wasn't feeling confident with my look or how I perceive myself. But I think everybody feels the same, but maybe I don't feel it now because it has been a long way of doing different type of formats like videos for YouTube, recording my voice. So at one point, I just don't feel anything bad about it, or just like you always feel this, or you will always see your how you say like def defect. En español es defectos. I don't know that word. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
you can. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. The
uh-huh,
defects, like the bad
uh-huh.
side.
Yeah, your defects. So and you can be like hours watching or finding your own defects, but when someone watch you, it's like they are not going to see the same that you see. You are the only one that you know your defects. So um I mean, you can watch yourself or listen to yourself to find your defects and work on it, but there are some things that you cannot work. For example, your tone or voice or whatever. So um, it's part of life, or in each part of our life, we are going to be experiencing this.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely understand the point that you're making. I think you hit on a great point there, that you have to accept yourself.
Mhm.
Acceptance is what I was talking about earlier. Have less self-judgment. And if there's
Mhm.
something that you can fix, you should totally work on it. But not everything is workable. Not everything is fixable.
Yeah,
Not
totally.
100% of it can change no matter how hard you try. So it's better that you have some self-love. Self-love is the most important thing in the entire world. It's not
Mhm.
gonna lie.
Yeah.
So I've had many experiences with my students, for example, my Indian students, and when they speak in English and I try to correct their pronunciation, they're sometimes a bit puzzled as to why am I teaching them American English or the American pronunciation of certain words. And when I tell them that this is the standard pronunciation, I almost always use the word standard, like, oh, you can say the dictionary pronunciation, but that might be a bit confusing. So I say standard pronunciation. They are a bit perplexed. You know what I mean? Because people in India, and by India, I'm referring to all the countries that have their own language other than English. People are used to speaking in a certain way. And there's also a bunch of Indianism in
Mhm.
English. For example, we as Indians devise new methods of pronouncing a word. So we
Mhm.
sound a bit different than British people or American
Yeah.
people. But as a teacher, it's my job to tell them what is exactly right, what is the accurate pronunciation of a particular word. And I do face some problems explaining to them early days a bit, you go back and forth, you have some friction. After some time, I also I gave them like full liberty to go and check the pronunciation that I'm teaching. We go check it anywhere you want
Mhm.
to. After some time, we do like develop this trust in each other, mostly from that side. and they don't question it. But in the early days, sometimes it has been a bit of a challenge for me to explain to them why I'm asking them to sound like an American. I'm not exactly asking them to sound like an American, but like sound like somebody who is understandable
Yeah.
to
Totally.
who is understandable to people from different countries, not just
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
That is something. Sometimes we receive some calls offering us services for design or marketing, and we know maybe some of them are from India because of the accent is easy to to know. Um,
Mhm.
but it's sometimes it's hard to, even for us that we are like, for me, Venezuela, um I know that we can also have an accent, but sometimes it's hard to understand the Indian accent that is so Indian for us,
Mhm.
like the pronunciation. And I have seen some comments on the interviews or the podcast that you have been, and some of them say like, I don't like how she speaks because I don't understand. But if you have this position about Richa's accent because it's different of other Indians, you are not going to get out of this same pattern of
Mhm.
speaking the same way. Even
Mhm.
imagine if I just listen to Venezuelan speakers speaking English or always the same accent. I wasn't able to understand some American accent because my brain is gonna be always thinking that, oh, I'm gonna just understand this type of pronunciation, this accent. So this is something that
Mhm.
I
It
don't
does
know.
become important. When you
Mhm,
start talking to people from outside the country, it does become important for you to speak in an international accent. I
exactly.
think this is a word that needs to become more popular. Get this word popular, international accent. And by that, I mean correct pronunciation, the correct pronunciation, not a particular line of pronunciation, only Indian pronunciation. And when you say the Indian pronunciation, mostly it's the wrong pronunciation. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Sometimes
Yeah.
it might be right, and there's a lot of acceptance in our country. Too many people living in one country, so if they all start making one mistake, it starts to feel like a new
Mhm.
addition to the vocabulary or
Yeah.
to the pronunciation bank in English, but that's not exactly the case. So I always recommend that you learn the right pronunciation, and the way you can do it is whenever you come across a word, go on Google and check all the available pronunciations of that word, and then you can take your pick. If the British pronunciation sounds like this is something that will land easier with your Indian audience, go for it. If the American pronunciation sounds closer to the Indian style of speaking, then you know what to pick. But don't speak the wrong pronunciation just because you think other people might not understand you. They will understand you. And I mean, like, comprehension is something that you try to figure out what is happening around you.
Mhm.
It's a method of figuring out. It's not being spoon fed. So even if somebody does not understand your English, or you're using advanced vocabulary, or you're using the right pronunciation, which is many a time less common than the wrong pronunciation.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? In
Yeah,
English, this happens.
exactly.
I don't know if it's the same
Mhm.
in Spanish.
Mhm.
Many wrong pronunciations over time have gathered so much attention and so much acceptance that they feel that, oh, this is the right one, and the right
Mhm.
one is actually the wrong one.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't actually do that. I've faced these things as well. People think that, oh, if you speak exactly the way it is supposed to be spoken, then you might be misunderstood. You run that risk, but I don't think that's a real risk. That's a
Mhm.
made up thing.
Yeah.
What about Spanish, Chris? So I know a word called, in English it is embarrassed, and in Spanish there is a word
Mhm.
called, you want to pronounce it because I might
Mhm.
mess it up.
Yeah, embarazada. Embarazada.
Yeah. And for people who do not speak Spanish, it can sound like, oh, the Spanish word for embarrassed.
Mhm.
But the word that she said, embarazado, I guess,
Ajá, embarazada.
actually means to be pregnant or
Ajá,
pregnancy.
pregnant. Ajá,
To,
to be
to be pregnant.
pregnant.
Yeah. You want to
Yes.
tell the meme that you read? There was a meme, right?
Yeah, yeah. In Spanish, we have so many words similar in English. that, for example, defect, defecto. Like
Mm.
there are so many words that are almost the same. So we have this bad practice of thinking that the same word is the same in Spanish or
Mm.
even in English. Some people think like, oh, maybe in Spanish is the same word, but adding a vowel at the end.
You think the same?
So yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
some
think I've asked you. No, I'm gonna pause you for a sec. I want to share this little thing that I used to do in our lessons a lot. Every time you teach me a new word related to like common vocabulary, let's say bed, I'd always ask you the question, what is the word for bed in Spanish? Bedo? Beda?
yeah, you see.
It's not
So
always like that.
yeah, so we do this, and sometimes I do it when I'm speaking with you. Um, but yeah, this is something that we cannot do with all the words because this can happen. You get like I'm embarrassed. If you say estoy embarazada, it's not the same in Spanish. Yeah.
And I'm so happy. I never tried to say I'm embarrassed in Spanish because
Mhm.
I could have made that mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, let's keep it short and sweet. We can part with the video. If you have any closing lines, do you want to say anything at the end? Any student incidents that come to
No,
mind?
I think that's all.
I think we get it all out, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we're closing this conversation here, but once again, we'll be back with another video. We had a big gap of 9 to 10 days, right? Because I was going through an illness. I had a middle ear infection, and that's not healed properly, but I decided I was not going to delay it anymore. So we
Mhm.
came up in here. I'd really appreciate it if you drop your comments, just letting us know how you felt about this conversation, and definitely do subscribe to our channel and like this video. See you again in the next one.
Bye.